Welcome back to the Football Fitness Federation podcast. This is episode 257. I'm delighted to welcome back onto the podcast today. It's been far too long. Jared Roberts-Smith, how are we doing?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me back on. It's a pleasure.
Like I said, it's been far too long. So it's been great to have a short catch up with you just before we hit record. But I want to dive into some of the topics that we've got lined up for today. But Jared, you're now head of performance at Luton Town. So first of all, congratulations. I know it's a little bit delayed on the promotion up to the Premier League.
Thank you. No, it's been a real whirlwind the last few months. Starting back in May when we got promoted, is an unbelievable day and time for the football club and everyone involved. It was a lot of hard work coming to fruition, and it was great memories that you probably look back on forever and be hard to sort of replicate. And then it's been all everything focused on the step up to the Premier League. So it's been a busy period, but it's something that where we wanted to be and something to enjoy and take on board.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to get into that in a little bit in around the Premier League and the demands of the schedule and the league and everything like that. But the last podcast we did, we neither of us could believe it, was way back pre-COVID, March 2020. So if anyone's not listened to that, they can go back and listen to episode 72. But we're going to treat it as though we've never done one, because I want you to give us a little bit of background on yourself and what sort of led you up to your role at Luton as well.
Yeah. So like I said in the first one, for those that didn't listen, started for me way back in sort of 2011, straight out of my undergrad into an internship at Charlton Athletic with Lawrence Bloom, who was head of sports science there. And five and a half, 6 really successful years there. My intern year, we won League One, and that was I'd sort of gone from contemplating what I was going to do after university to then fast forward in 12 months and getting promoted and going to Vegas with Charlton, which was a beautiful experience. And worked my way up head of academy, and then back up to head of sports science once Lawrence had departed. So look back on that period really fondly and learnt so much, and sort of helped mould me into what I am today through that foundational period. And then went to Luton in 2016. Did 2.5 years there. Got promoted out of League Two. Again, really successful time for the football club, for myself. Really enjoyed it and was a great time. And then got the opportunity to go on to Stoke, where I think we were when we recorded the first podcast. Not so much of a successful time, and a lot of soul searching and contemplating my job and everything that goes with that. But learnt so much in that period, probably more than I'd done in the previous 8 years. Probably learnt more in that 18 months where it wasn't so fruitful. And it was really good tool for reflection and sort of critique of my practice and my profession. Not particularly enjoyable learning, but as I always say, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable at times, and that's sort of the job and the nature of the beast a little bit. Then got the opportunity to go out to Australia through a friend that was out there. Went out to Melbourne for a year with Melbourne Victory, which was very different from a professional side of things. Was a bit of an eye opener. It was sort of probably the third or fourth choice sport out there behind rugby league and AFL and cricket. So there's a lot of it was a lot different in terms of resources and infrastructure, and it probably challenged me a little bit more in that sense, where obviously football here is quite well backed, and there's a lot of good stuff that goes on with regards to resources and infrastructure in football and sports science. So there was challenges that came with that, and again tested me as a practitioner and a person. And then got the opportunity to come back to Luton. Sort of grabbed that with both hands. Had a really enjoyable life experience in Australia, but the opportunity to come back to the Championship and to Luton itself was one that I felt I couldn't really turn down. And then, yeah, two unbelievable years, to be honest, with Luton, 2 playoff campaigns, and then obviously the last one was successful when we got promoted to the Premier League, which, like I said, was the culmination of a lot of hard work. But yeah, something that is sort of unexplainable in terms of the emotions and the feelings that it brought. And yeah, to win a playoff campaign is unbelievable. So, and then yeah, find ourselves in the Premier League, and personally a nice promotion over the summer to back up that club one. One that I'm really grateful to the manager at the football club and the board, and one that has been real good development for me over the last couple of months over the summer and leading into the season, and now, yeah, doing the business in the Premier League. So it's been a good few years.
Brilliant. We're going to dive into that just in a second. I just want to take you back and tell me if you don't want to discuss this, because I'm happy to move on. But that time at Stoke, you said about a lot of reflections on your own practice. What I'm interested in for people listening as well, when they've maybe been in a role where things haven't gone to plan, they've not gone quite in the direction that they thought. What was, if there was one thing you had to highlight that you've now taken forward, obviously returning back to Luton, being in this position, experiencing some success, and now being in the Premier League, is the one thing that you sort of take forward on a daily basis where you're like, that was my big lesson, and now this comes with me on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think it's probably two-pronged in terms of, I think, having resilience in what you do, and really believing in your process and your structures. There's things that come with that are challenging. People questioning what you do, whether that's hierarchy or players, because things around it aren't particularly going amazing in terms of results or things on the pitch. But if you're well versed in what you do and you believe in it as much as I do in terms of my practice and my philosophy, I think you have to be resilient and be robust, and keep obviously adapt and evolve to the situation that you're in, but stay strong to your beliefs and your processes. Because, like I say, I like to think I'm not doing too much different at Luton now or over the last couple of years as to what I was doing at Stoke in my role. I think it's a little bit more bespoke to the group or the staff or the club that you're working for, but I think the main premise of my practice, at least, has been quite similar. And when things aren't going so well, I think questions get asked and you ask questions of yourself. But at the end of the day, if you believe in it and you, like I say, you're well versed in it, I think you have to stick to it and really be diligent with it and keep doing what you're doing and have answers for the questions that get asked, and be determined in it and really drive it with what you believe in. Because I think if you go away from that, you're not the person or the practitioner that you are, and you might open yourself up a little bit. So I had moments where I questioned what I was doing and is it right, but ultimately I stuck to it. And I like to think that, say for example, when we came back from lockdown, I think we were one of the fitter teams in the league, and hopefully that helped cement our status in the division at the time. So yeah, and I think the other side of it is to enjoy the good times, because sometimes in football and life, not everything's rosy, and it can be challenging. So when you have the luxury and the highs that come with that, enjoy it, take it on board. Like I say, the moments that we were gifted with in May in terms of being successful in Wembley and everything that came with that, I'll never forget, and I'll never take that for granted. And I'm sure there'll be some down periods moving forward, but you have to remember the good times and believe that the bad times won't last, and that you can push through those and remain a strong practitioner and come out on top. And yeah, that'd probably be the two things that I took away from that.
Yeah, it's a great point. Something really important. I think a lot of that, speaking to people as well, comes from experience, doesn't it? Like, you have to go through that I'm talking about like the confidence behind you sticking up for the way of working, your philosophy, because we've talked a lot about coaches reflecting on the practice and questioning things, which I think is a good thing as well, isn't it? But then there's a fine line between questioning things and changing things all the time, and actually having confidence behind what you're doing and a rationale.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of the times it might not have been other people questioning, it was me questioning myself and sort of my own voice in my own head. And do I stay strong with this? Do I keep going? Like, am I opening people up? Am I risking things? Can I go safe, or should I keep pushing? But ultimately, I had to look myself in the mirror and believe in what I was doing, and like I say, stay strong with it and be robust and come out the other side of it. And I'd like to think I have, in terms of what I've done as a practitioner. And like you say, I think I learned so much in that period, and I'm definitely better for those tough times. And I think it like I say, the good times are maybe quite easy, and you can get through it. And it's when you go through a rough period or a tough time that your resolve is tested, and you see how much you actually want it and how much you're willing to push through and drive it. And yeah, like I say, not particularly comfortable, and it's not particularly enjoyable at the time, but when you come out the other side of it, you're a better person and practitioner for it, probably. So yeah, there probably some big things I learned from that period.
Yeah, bro. I want to get into it now. So this progression through the leagues, like you mentioned before about where Luton were at initially when you were at the club, and then also when you returned and then kicking on to the Prem now. This progression obviously comes in a big change of demands on the players, and also then the approach that you're going to be taking with players. So can you give a bit of a breakdown in terms of especially this jump from Championship to Premier League, like you've done most recently, in terms of you get through the off-season time, you've got all your partying, you're celebrating out the way, then it's reflecting on, right, we've got a Premier League season to prepare for. Where did your mind go in terms of changes to be made, the information that you needed regarding the Premier League? Take us through that initially.
Yeah, I think like you say, start with the off season, because I think that's such a foundational period of the season. And not that I was surprised, but I was really pleased with probably the best uptake I've ever seen of off-season programs from the group of lads and the players. And I think from speaking with those guys, they obviously see the opportunity that we have to be at this level and play at this level. And I didn't think, yeah, that people would take it for granted by any sense, but it was literally probably a week after that the lads are firing into me and saying like, can I do this and can I do that? And normally I program like probably 2 weeks of like recovery, especially with like after a playoff campaign. Like we've pushed from end of June the previous year all the way through to the end of May, so it's coming up to sort of a 12-month program cycle. So I sort of gapped out and planned out 2 weeks for the lads to recover and regenerate and all the stuff that goes along with that. And literally 4 or 5 days after we'd finished at Wembley, lads were on to me in terms of, can we do this? We need to do this. We need to push harder. So I think from the off, the lads have been so diligent with what we're doing and how we're doing it, and that's a credit to the group and Luton as a football club, because the kind of personnel that they recruit and the type of lads that we've got in the building is second to none, and the best I've ever worked with by a country mile. So I think that's an important aspect to touch on. And then I think we came into pre-season knowing that we probably had to do more, but the base that the lads had put in throughout the off season, and then the additions that we recruited over the summer, and the physicality and athletic prowess we had within the squad, we probably knew we could push harder anyway. We've tended to do that year on year at Luton, review what we've done in previous pre-seasons and across that season, and then aim to push that benchmark a little bit higher every year. And then even coming into the season now, it's been even more, because being in the Premier League, we just have access to so much more objective data than we've ever had. We have Second Spectrum, we have Spotlight, we have our own GPS metrics, but there's just so much information out there. There's so many integrations and programs relative to sort of match outputs that you can see what other teams are doing. You can benchmark it against what you're doing on a match day, and then sort of push on from there. And like a lot of people do, everything that we do throughout the week is related to match load. So when your match outputs are higher, your training outputs are going to be higher to sort of bridge that gap and build that sort of relative chronic loading throughout a week. So yeah, I think it's been a learning curve for everyone. I think the sports science guys, the strength and conditioning guys within our department, the coaching staff, the playing group, everyone has seen the physicality the Premier League has to offer, and I'd like to think that we've sort of leveled up with it. I think from the games that we've played so far, we seem to have been in a good physical state, and yeah, we're hungry for it. We want to keep pushing and want to keep being better, and we are, I think, from a physical point of view, we almost see that as probably one of the most controllable aspects of our performance, and we know how fit we can be and need to be to sort of thrive at this level. And yeah, we've shown a real diligence in pushing the group on safely and progressively throughout this initial part of the season, and we'll continue to do that to make sure that we're the best version of ourselves that we can be moving forward into the season.
No, definitely. Yeah, it's just reflecting on when you said about the off season, it was making me laugh. I was thinking it's amazing what a live game on Sky Sports against Chelsea does for a bit of motivation to get off that sun lounger, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that side of it, going and testing ourselves against the so-called big boys, and seeing how we can like sort of square up to them, as the lads knew that if they didn't do the right things across the summer, then there's a potential to get exposed, because everyone's watching. It's where everyone wants to be, and yeah, like I say, we're hungry, and that's what we've always been at Luton since the minute I walked through the door in 2016. The vision's been to push on. The club and the board have always had that in mind, and that's been drilled into us as a coaching staff, and the managers that we've had have been really progressive and want to drive things further, and that's echoed by the coaching staff and the people that we recruit and have brought into the playing staff as well. So it's we know what we want to do this year, and we want to test ourselves against the best. And yeah, it's good. We know it's going to be difficult, but we're here by merit from getting promoted from the Championship, and we're really hungry to stay at this level and hopefully thrive over the forthcoming years.
Yeah, definitely. Just to take you back to that sort of analysis of what you're going into in the Premier League, was there anything that stood out for you in terms of data, or anything that you wanted to know specifically that was going to inform your practice or has informed your practice since actually starting in that league?
I think it's stuff that's relatively straightforward. I don't think there's been any big shocks. I just think the level is it's just so much more complete than any level that I've worked at prior, and the players within the division are so athletic, they're so sharp. I think maybe in those lower levels you maybe get like maybe some really good technicians that maybe lack the physical side, or you might get some real physical specimens that lack maybe the technical aspects or the tactical aspects. Maybe some that have been at that level and then are coming down, and there's flaws physically. But at this level, everyone's just complete, and they're so sharp, they're so quick, they're potent from a physical point of view, and then they're just, you have to concentrate for 100 minutes, 105 minutes, and the minute that you switch off from a mental point of view or a tactical point of view, and you let a runner go, or you switch off on a cross or whatever that may be, the rate of getting punished is just so much higher than in the Football League. And yeah, it's been yeah, eye-opening from that side of things. But if you watch the level regularly and consistently, you know what you're up against, and you know the lads at the in the sort of top 6 or at the peak, and then it filters down as you go through the leagues. But it's the teams, but it's it's been enjoyable to work at and test ourselves against the best. And maybe we haven't got the points or the outcomes that the performances have reflected, but we feel we're getting better week on week, and can hopefully across the next sort of period showcase what we can do and keep improving and keep driving things like we always have done at Luton, and get some positive results and some positive outcomes as we move forward.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I mean, as we record this as well, we are only a very small portion into the season, so I understand that as well. What I'm really interested in is your approach preparing the players for the previous season. So going into that championship season, obviously there's an intention from you and the club where you've had previous seasons of getting into the playoffs, long seasons again, like you just mentioned. So obviously that I'm guessing there was an intention of something similar. The difference to that to going into this Premier League season where I know there's still a lot of games involved, but there should be less games throughout the whole season. So even though the intensity is going to be Premier League level now, was there a big difference from you and your program and the way that you approached it from like a long season championship, trying to get into that playoff, be successful, to Premier League?
I probably wouldn't say like there was any standout points or objectives to the planning. I think, like you say, they're two different seasons, and even like going back on last year, it was crazy because you had the World Cup break in the middle. You're coming off the back of like you say, another ridiculous season in terms of there was still COVID knocking about in that previous season. I think that we had like 3 or 4 games called off in that season, in the Christmas period of that season, and then that knocked on into what would it have been, 2022 season, or 22 calendar year, and we ended up playing. I think there were 15 weeks post Christmas, and we ended up playing 12 weeks of midweekers. We had 2 weeks off, and it was mad, and it unfortunately eventually probably caught up with us a little bit going into the playoff campaign, where we had some injuries and probably weren't at our strongest. So I think it was more things like that, just being a little bit mindful of recovery, and then utilising that period that we had in the World Cup break. We were fortunate enough to be able to go to Dubai, and we had a really great, probably the best trip I've ever had, in terms of work, and then a balance of rest and togetherness. And then we came back and we were able to be really strong in that second half of the season. Even things like there was a managerial change in that period, and yeah, pretty much anything that could have got thrown at us that year did. But in terms of programming, I wouldn't say that there was anything standout. We always try and prepare our lads for sort of peak demands, so 3-game weeks. But it's probably very similar to things that other teams do. We push. We're not safe with what we do. We should probably tread quite a thin line between stretching the lads but not snapping them and breaking them. We sort of probably teeter right on that edge and push people to maximum capacity to get the best out of them. And I think that's probably what we've had to do at Luton. We don't have the biggest playing budget, but what we do have is really resourceful, hard-working, diligent staff behind the scenes to really push and stretch what we do. And I like to think our monitoring strategies are good, and we make sure that we keep those lads in that sweet spot without sounding too jargony a lot of the time. And when something does go wrong, we reflect. We try and improve and adapt our practice to make sure that doesn't happen again. And yeah, I think there's nothing that stands out too much, but just be really diligent with how we're working on a microcycle basis. Try and have a strong mezzo, and then build that into a season-long plan as well. And yeah, I think it's largely helped by the fact we have such a good group that buy into everything that we do, from pre-activation to training to gym work to the coaches that listen and really take on board and listen to the information that we provide to inform our practice. So yeah, it's a special place, really, to be honest, with great people that do really good work, I'd like to think, and that's obviously been showcased on the pitch the last couple of seasons. And yeah, hopefully, and I think we all believe that we can do it again this year and keep pushing and keep evolving what we do at Luton to have another successful season.
Just want to pick up on a word that's probably one of the most repeated words on the podcast, and that's the being adaptable, adaptability. And you just summarised it there really nicely, because some of the things you've come up against in that season, fixtures being moved, obviously COVID, and all the rest of it, it just shows that the whole analogy of planning in pencil has to come into place, doesn't it? Because you can set out this plan, but then these curveballs just get thrown your way, and you don't know that you get into the playoffs at that point either, do you? So you don't even know how long the season's going to be. So for you as a practitioner, that the skill of being adaptable is massive, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, not to say that anyone that does this is wrong or it isn't good practice, but I probably don't bother with a large macro cycle and look at the season, because, like you say, so many things can change. I think probably the maximum I do is sort of probably do a team plan for probably 8 weeks, and probably one of the largest reasons I do that is to send that out to the lads so they can see.
Yeah.
I think we have a real good balance of sort of the understanding of the professional requirements of the job, but also that there's a personal side to it as well, and we build good relationships with people. And an important aspect of that is getting a plan out there so that they can see that and plan for their families. Or again, now we've made the step up. There's a few more foreign lads within the group, and some of them utilize the opportunity to go back to wherever they're from to see family and catch up with them. And then we feel that by doing that and getting that plan out, they come into the building motivated and energized, and we can get the best out of them whilst they're in the building, and help with that sort of human side of it, and yeah, drive what we do in the building by supporting them out of it. And that's probably the largest extent. And then I'll sit down with the performance guys, so the medical, sports science. We'll sort of formulate a plan for what we expect the next sort of 4, 6, 8 weeks to look like. But again, Premier League, Championship level, there's so many adjustments because of TV or whatever that looks like. And you're if you're in a cup or whatever that may look like, things can change on a sixpence. And that's probably why I don't bother doing a really longitudinal plan. We have process and structure to our work, and like I say, we review things from months gone by that are similar, or reflect on annual plans and bits and pieces like that, to tweak it and keep moving forward with what we're doing. But yeah, sort of review what we're doing with the guys, go through it quite methodically, and then present that to the coaching staff so everyone's on the same page with what we do. Again, like I said, we'll do some good meetings with the lads as well and explain what the next sort of 4, 5, 6 weeks entail and what we're going to look to do. And I think if you explain things to everyone, from myself to the sports science guys to medical to coaching staff, and then to the playing staff as well, as long as you're transparent with what you're trying to do and explain things and rationalize things, from my experience, people tend to really buy into it. And I think that's one thing that we do really well at Luton and is valued from everybody, to get the best out of everyone and what we do when we're in the building. So it seems to work well. And like I say, I'd like to think the proof's in the pudding. And yeah, my time at Luton's been really successful, and I'd probably say that's because of the good work that everyone does and the way everyone buys into a plan and the structure that's within that plan.
Yeah, brilliant. It reminds me of a podcast I did a long time ago with Tom Little, who was at Preston at that point, and we titled it "Managing the Microcycle," because his thing was all about looking at that microcycle and just adapting to what you know that you've got in front of you, and deal with the unknown when it pops up, basically. And that's exactly what you're saying, isn't it?
Definitely. Like again, like like not to go into too much detail, but we've really pushed the lads the last few weeks. So again, like looking back at last week, we probably had a day where we'd planned to do X, Y, and Z, and we changed that on the day, just because we had some really good feedback from the lads, which we were always asked for. We sat down as a group of staff and decided that probably the gut feel that we had was to change a little bit of what we were doing on that day, and then we rolled out a plan. We explained to the lads how it was different from what we said we were going to do and why. And everyone again bought into it because there's good rationale behind it. It was explained well to the group, and yeah, like I say, everyone buys into it really well. And like you say, you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to react to things that go on, and that's professional sport in a nutshell, really.
You mentioned just before about the change in playing squad as well. So what I'm really interested to hear about that, and in terms of how you found that, and also just tying it in, because it sounds like the culture at the club from the time that you've been there before and then returned, it sounds like a really strong culture going on at the club. So for then the club to get promoted to a new league and new players to come into that, how have you found that in terms of these changes that have happened this year?
Yeah, again, I can't speak highly enough of the club and the way that things are done in terms of maintenance of the environment, and the characters that come in, and the board, and the chief exec, and then what we do on a day-to-day basis, from myself to the chefs to the kit men to the manager of the football club, is we value our environment so much. The culture that is within it. I think probably one of the first things that's said to any player coming in is that we work hard, we're honest, we respect each other, we expect humility. If you don't like something or you don't understand something, ask a question rather than just dismiss it and um, display that with poor body language or poor application or attitude to something. And then if that does happen, we respect you, so we're going to pull you up on it, and we're going to challenge you. And it's the same for anyone. Like if I didn't like something that was going on, and I didn't like I displayed a negative reaction to that, I'd get pulled up on that, and we hold people accountable for what they do. And there's a really strong culture that's underpinned by all the things that I just said. So, and I think that's been there. Hopefully, I've contributed to that through what we do in the sports science work and the physical and the performance side of things. But I think that's reflected by everybody in the building, and is really upheld strongly. And I think the success that's come with that drives that even further. You know, it's sort of like alluded to it before, but like a snowball effect, because people see that success comes from those things, and then they protect that with the integrity that it requires. So yeah, like I said, like you said, I think there's been 13, 14 new bodies come in the door. So it's not always an easy thing to do, but what the club does is get strong character references from people that know those players, um, and it's a sort of a staple requirement for someone coming through the door, is that they're a good person, that they want to keep getting better, keep improving. And then when that's backed up by the work that we do on a day-to-day basis, and even the ones that leave, still stay in contact with a lot of them, because they're good people, and that have done fantastic things for myself and the football club. And the feedback we often get is that wherever they sort of go on to, the standards that Luton possess, and the expectations, the way that we train, the way that we do things, the way that we communicate, the way that we go above and beyond, from every aspect, is sort of missed and sort of appreciated and cherished by them not having it anymore. So yeah, I like to think that we do some good work at the football club, and that we can continue to do that and continue to safeguard that and build it even further and keep evolving as we go up the levels. And like you said, there's some really good people that have come in over the summer that have been at big organisations and big football clubs, and that's an opportunity for us to learn and get some good dialogue with them. We had a chat the other day around nutrition and recovery, and I said to those guys, like, you've worked for big football clubs and big organisations, like, if there's something that we're not doing here that you like, or something that you've done at those places, we have to be mindful of the cost and the resources that requires. But what this football club has done really well over the last few years is, if we can rationalise something with good science and good process behind it, the club will back it and invest in it. And they've done that time and time again. So those lads communicating that with us, coupled with things like your podcast and the good things that are out there in terms of professional development from our point of view, just helps kick on the club further and really drive what we're doing. And yeah, it's a great place to be honest, with the way that it's backed and supported, and then the people that come through the door. I'm probably harping on about it, but I can't speak highly enough of Luton and the way that things are done, really.
I think you've pointed out some really interesting aspects to that though as well, because obviously culture gets talked about a lot, but actually diving into what a culture is it comes back to sort of daily actions, doesn't it, and responsibility. And I love looking at other organisations, not just football clubs, businesses, other sports. And I think when you think of some of these real successful organisations, whoever it is, it comes back to a lot of stuff that you talked about in terms of honesty, transparency, being called up for your work. That sort of environment that people create leads to success somewhere down the line, doesn't it? And I think that's obviously been highlighted with some of the things that you spoke about.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you say, you have to live it. I think it's one thing saying it, or it's one thing putting it on a wall, or pinning it up in a change room, or however you do that. And I'm actually quite a big believer in some of like graphics and having some of those messages around, but they become redundant and just a space filler if you don't believe in it and you don't drive it. And yeah, I think we're fortunate enough to have a brand new performance centre, which is a game changer for us and a great space to be. And we put some really informative graphics on, but it's stuff that we believe in. It's stuff that every gym session or every training session we refer to, whether that be attitude and application, or why we're doing that particular like strength work. So we've put things on the wall as to, okay, lads will go, why are we doing this exercise, or does that apply to what we're doing outside? And go, well, actually, look on the wall. That's why we're doing it. That's what we believe in. That's what we do at the football club. That's what we're underpinned by in our practice. And like I say, we've got things about attitude and expectation when we train. We've got things about like basic science behind lifting heavy or running quickly or whatever that looks like. And again, I did a presentation to the lads the other week. It was actually the first time, it's the middle of September, but the first time that we actually had the whole group together, because the transfer window had shut, then international break had come. So it was the first time we had the opportunity to get all the lads together and speak to them and sort of say what the expectations were and what we do at Luton and why we do it. And a couple of lads came up to me and said, oh wow, like, spoke really well, and like, it was really informative. And I was like, well, it's what I live, it's what I breathe, it's what I do every day, and I'm so passionate about it. And it's the same for the way that we train and the way that we do gym and the way that we do activation and the way that the coaches coach and have meetings. And we've got stuff up in a meeting room that are constant messages that we'll refer to in team meetings, and style of play and bits and pieces like that. So like you say, I think culture is really important, but if you don't sort of live and breathe it and really believe in it, then it can become a little bit fluffy, and it can become probably not as valuable as it can be, as if you really believe in it and really go about your business on a day-to-day basis with that underpinning what you do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, definitely. I think less is more with it as well, isn't it? Like, rather than plastering quotes everywhere and players not really understanding what you mean by it, like having things like you say that really mean something and apply to your practice, that's massive.
Yeah.
Jared, I don't want to keep you all night because I know it's going to be a busy time for you at the minute. So I want to just move on to some of the quick fire questions just to wrap the podcast up.
Yeah, of course.
So first one being, who've been some of the biggest influences on your career so far?
I think it would have to mainly be Lawrence Bloom, who's now head of sports science at Cambridge. He gave me my opportunity in the game from a sports science point of view, and sort of molded me and sort of gave me those foundational aspects to my practice. And more than anything, is just the top guy, and the way that he looked after me and the way that he supported me, and he still does now. We still speak all the time, still speak really regularly about what we're doing and how we do things. And yeah, he was at Wembley. He came and watched the game in his off season. So like the support he's given me has been unbelievable, and he's got an unbelievable track record of helping people progress into the game. So Josh Hornby, who's at Charlton, worked with us. Chris McConnell, who's at Wimbledon, worked with us, and yeah, he's just a top guy. And then from a more football point of view, probably the three key managers I've worked under. Chris Powell gave me the opportunity at Charlton alongside Bloomy, and it was a really fruitful time under him. Then I met Nathan Jones there, who was taking me to Luton, to Stoke, back to Luton. He's done some amazing work for Luton and for myself, and has supported me. And then Rob is obviously at Luton now and has been massive for me. He's supported me. He's given me the progression both to the Premier League as a manager, and then as a head of performance as a practitioner. So he's really supported me. And then yeah, like the board at Luton, unbelievable, and the support they give you, and the scope they give you to do your job properly and have autonomy in it, and then support it with infrastructure and resources has been unbelievable. So yeah, some really great people that have helped me get to the level that I am today.
What would you say your biggest strength is as a practitioner?
It's a hard one to say because you don't want to seem to be ignorant or arrogant, but I'd probably say just the way I'm able to sort of foster relationships. I think the feedback from probably the people that I spoke about prior is they've probably worked with a lot of people that have real in-depth knowledge and a real understanding for sports science and what it takes to make someone fit or strong, underpinned by literature or research or evidence-based practice. But I think what I'm good at is generating and fostering relationships, getting to know the players and the athletes that you work with as people, so you're more relatable, and then you have that relationship and people want to work hard for you. They want to buy into what you want to do. You're open, so if they question things, you can have a good chat with them. If you make a mistake, you can be open and say, maybe I didn't do that so well, and show that you're still learning and that you're culpable to make a mistake, and show a bit more of that human side. And that, I think that really generates and fosters relationships, and then things snowball from there, and you get close. People don't want to let you down. You don't want to let them down. You push each other, you drive each other, and that makes your practice even more in depth. And then yeah, you and I think maybe show an example, like show that you're willing to go above and beyond for them. Show, like, whether that's a text late at night or a call to check that they're okay, or if there's something going on outside of the building, check in on them and show that you care. And then I don't know, if there's an aspect of training that you can dip in on, whether that be in the gym or a bit of running outside or whatever that looks like, you can push them and show that you're willing to go above and beyond for them to get the best for them. And I'd probably say that's one of my biggest strengths.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that accountability piece is really important that you just mentioned. So yeah, no, that's top. Jared, in terms of advice to yourself, if you were to speak to Jared when he just come out of university, newly qualified, stepping into the first role, what would be your top bit of career advice?
I think it would be quite simple, and it'd be a good person, work hard, try and stay humble with what you do. And yeah, there'll be good times, there'll be ups, but you'll probably get tested the most in your down times and those tough moments. But like I touched on earlier, be resilient, be durable to that, believe in yourself and that the work that you do and that those good times will swing back round. And I'm a big believer of, like, sounds a bit cliche, but hard work pays off. And I've probably dedicated a large percentage of my life over the last 11 years to get where I've got to now, and that comes with massive sacrifice and yeah, just working hard and being a good person and trying to do things to the best of your ability whilst developing good relationships and respecting people, whether that, like I touched on earlier, I have a really good relationship with the kitchen porter at work. Like, we've got a handshake, and I value him. I've dropped him home after work. I've brought him in at times, and I'd do that for anyone at the football club, because I think it's important to really value people and those relationships. And when you do that, they often are willing to work really hard for you and repay that. So yeah, I think work hard, be a good person, and stick to your beliefs and be strong in what you do.
Brilliant. Final one, mate. It's funny because we spoke about this before we hit record. In terms of CPD, continued development as a practitioner, especially when you cut down your commuting time, what's your approach to that?
Yeah, it's tough. Like you say, we were saying, I used to travel in from Southend to Luton every day, which was on the dreaded M25 and could take up to 3 hours. I'd have the opportunity to listen to 3 hour long podcasts and bits and pieces like that. But I don't have the opportunity to do that now. I've moved a little bit closer, which has been great for me, from a personal point of view. But probably very similar to everyone else. Try and jump on your podcast, listen to the great stuff that you provide. I like Sportsmith. I think the stuff that Rob's doing in providing some of those articles and the literature and the research behind it has been really pivotal to some of the stuff that we've done. And then I'm fortunate enough to work with some really good guys in our department that are young and hungry and bring some really good ideas to the table and some good discussion topics. So that's a really good avenue for me to keep pushing. Probably, again, you've got to be careful with what you look at and what you decide to take on board, but the standard stuff around Twitter and Instagram, the good social media accounts that are out there, I find are fruitful, as long as you're critical with what you look at and sort of the science behind it. And then, like I touched on as well, players for me are so key. Like, probably if you're 26, 27-year-old player, he's probably worked with 5, 6, 7 good practitioners for his time. So lean on them, listen to the things that they've got to say as well, because they're experienced individuals that have done some good work with some good people most of the time. So yeah, I think as long as you're open-minded, again, stay strong to your beliefs in what you do, but there's loads of good things out there. And yeah, probably to summarize, podcasts, Sportsmith, Twitter, social media, and then the lads, and whether that be staff or players.
Brilliant, mate. I think there's been some really good information in there, so I really appreciate you diving into all that. It's been good to have a proper catch up as well, so I appreciate you coming on. Just wrap us up, mate. If people have got questions or you just want to direct them somewhere just to catch up, where would you say?
I'm probably going to negate what I just said about Twitter and stuff, and maybe even show my age a little bit. And I've gone away from that a little bit the last couple of years, and trying to follow what we tell the lads and get off the blue light in the evening and bits and pieces like that. But probably LinkedIn now is the. Yeah. I think
it's making a comeback, LinkedIn. I'll put that out there.
I think if I'd said that, probably going back to the first time, I've been like, oh, like, what's he doing on LinkedIn? Like, he must be old and boring and on Twitter. But yeah, I think that's the way it's going a little bit now, and I agree with you. I think it's making a bit of a bounce back, but it's one now that I probably spend a bit of time on when I get the opportunity to look out there, and I think there's some good stuff out there. So yeah, I'd probably say that's the best one to reach out on.
Brilliant, mate. Well, I've loved watching the start of the season so far with Luton in the Premier League. It's been amazing, but I wish you all the best for the rest of the season as well.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate it. And like I said at the beginning, thanks for having me back on. I think I'm within a select few that have been lucky enough to be on it twice. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and speak about like the last couple of years. So yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
We'll get you that hat trick ball soon.
Yeah, nice one. Top man.